Well, we just saw Wild, and on this show, I take my friends, we go see a movie, we review it in the car, and we have a discussion. The review part's spoiler-free, so if you want to know if this is a movie you might be interested in, check out for that, and you'll hear our recommendations. If you've already seen the movie or have no interest in seeing it and don't care about spoilers, want to hear everything we thought, watch the whole thing, because we'll get into that in the discussion section. So Wild. It's been a while. We've been trying to get to this movie for quite a bit. It's been out for a long time in other places, and for whatever reason, it just took its time getting here. It's essentially Reese Witherspoon hiking for a really long time, and there's a lot of flashbacks to sort of what happened. It kind of put her in that position where she felt like she had to find herself or work some things out or exile herself a little bit, that kind of thing. It's not it's not a quick-paced movie. You have to kind of go into this with the mindset of this is going to be kind of a long haul. You have sort of the intrigue of, why is she like this? What happened to her? The trailer tells you some of that, gives you some of that information, but for the most part, you're sort of watching her sort of get through the day-to-day of making her way down this trail and having flashbacks and thinking about these things that have happened in her life that she's upset about or feels guilty about, or those sorts of things. And it's an interesting story. I honestly, you said something about when we were walking out about wanting to read the book now. I almost think that the book is probably a better way to experience this story. Not because the movie's bad. I mean, the movie's probably a quicker way to experience the story, but it's so... The non-linearity isn't necessarily a bad thing about it, but it's almost... It's just this side of being an abstract movie. And what I mean by that is the narrative continuously does things like jump in and explain something to you that you would either make up your own mind about or figure out on your own otherwise. The very ending of the movie, which I'm not going to spoil it, we'll talk about it in the discussion part, but the very ending of the movie is almost like, instead of letting you sort of figure out for yourself what her resolution was or what it was that she was thinking, it just flat out tells you, and it just like skips ahead in time a bunch and tells you what the next 10 years of her life are going to be like. And that seems really cheesy to me. It just seems like a cop-out ending, as if the audience isn't, smart enough to figure out for themselves what they think the ending means or what they think she took out of it. But having said all of that, I mean, that probably does make it a little bit more of a mass appeal, or more of something that, particularly fans of Reese Witherspoon would probably enjoy kind of knowing that about the end of the movie, versus somebody that would be, expect, somebody, you don't expect this to be like a David Lynch movie. You don't expect it to be like a totally abstract kind of thing. And it is and it isn't. There's parts of it that are sort of up for interpretation, but the really important parts, I feel like they really spell out to you, but not always in a scene. It's usually in a voiceover or in parts of a flashback that come back. And it sounds like I'm really down on this movie. It's not that I'm down on it. There are some things that I liked. They did some really tricky things with editing where I felt like if they weren't using music to sort of hold some sections together, that the editing would have really been jarring. It would really be hard to follow what was happening. But they were doing things where a flashback would start and then you'd see her doing something in the present, and the music would kick back in from the flashback in the present, and then it would go back to the flashback. That was really effective because you had this sense of her memory sort of being interrupted for a minute, and then her getting back to that memory. And if they hadn't had the music there to sort of hold things together, it feels like the editing would have been really, really hard to take, just bouncing around as much as it did. So anyway, I mean, generally speaking, as long as it's taken this movie to come out, probably if you've wanted to see it already, you have. But if it sounds like it's something interesting, I would see it. And you know, the performances are fine. It's nothing earth shattering. It's you know, I don't think that it may be the best thing Reese Witherspoon's ever been in, but I can't think off the top of my head what was better. So anyway, that's kind of what I thought. What would you say about it?
Well, it's gonna sound like I'm down on it too, but
there's just so much movie. Like, it's a 2-hour movie of flashbacks and confusion, and
so I will get out of the way. I did enjoy the movie.
Yeah.
But I had some problems with it. One, it felt like the movie just could not figure out what type of movie it wanted to be.
Yeah.
It kind of like had a self-help feel to it. And then all of a sudden, there were scenes that seemed so detached from what was going on that I was like, okay, is this like gonna like break down into a thriller?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what are we watching? I thought the performances were great, specifically her husband, her mom.
Mm-hmm.
A lot was made about Reese Witherspoon's performance, but a lot of it was voiceover. You get a lot of views of her just staring off into the distance.
Yeah.
And that's a huge chunk of the movie. And as such, so I don't really think her performance was like mind-blowing. I don't think she'll probably get any awards for it. But all in all, it was a good movie that I think the very ending, like you said, just kind of left you feeling robbed.
Yeah. Yeah, after 2 hours to have like a 10-second voiceover that says like what's going to happen for the 10 years that happen after the movie's over is just so...
It was cheap. It was cheap. It was...
And it does make you feel like, too, I mean, and the movie all the way through is like this. It felt like it's a 2-hour movie because it's a 25-hour book. You know, they tried to cram as much of it together as they could. They tried to tell as much of the story as they could. And they also wanted it to feel like it was a long, arduous thing to get through. They wanted you to, like, have that experience of walking with her and moving, you know, getting through all of that stuff with her. So, yeah. So, I mean, some of those choices really kind of botch it for me. You know, I certainly wouldn't watch it again.
Yeah, neither. I don't think I would either. I mean, I definitely think it's worth a watch.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not bad, and it's not broken. It's just like, it's not a, oh my God, you got to rush out and see this, or, you know, you've got to see this performance, or, you know, that scene or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's the review section. We're kind of mixed on it, but like I said, this has been out for a while, and if you wanted to see it, you probably had the chance to already. So you know, I don't think I'm really trying to convert anybody here. Getting into the discussion side, I mean, I guess they show the things in the trailer, like there's the fox that's, like, in the trailer they spell out like that the fox is her mom, like the spirit of her mom. And then Laura Dern, like, appears every once in a while, like, as the spirit of herself, as the spirit of the mom character that she plays. And it's this weird vibe of, like, she's there to sort of make the character feel guilty, or she's there to make the character feel like she needs to, you know, move on, or, you know, do better than what she's doing. There's kind of there's a scene that I'll just go ahead and get upset for for people that work in the medical profession for them, which is when the mother dies, there's just like a sign on the door that says check with the nurse's station before you go in. And they get there and they see the sign and they turn around and the nurse says, we put ice on her eyes, instead of, hey, by the way, your mom died while you were gone. Like,
you know, and it makes you wonder if that actually happened. Like, I want to read the book to see if that's her recollection of it. Like, or they just put that in the movie to make it hit a little harder.
Yeah, I mean, that was just like, really? And then she has like rubber gloves on her face, and
I'm more eager to see what's on the cutting room floor, because there were a lot of scenes in there that seemed completely out of place, and I'm sure they shot something to tie it in.
Yeah.
But like you said, the editing was kind of like, I wouldn't have made that choice.
Yeah, and you don't really know what happened with her dad. Like, you don't know how that ended.
Well, what about the hunters?
How they got away from him.
What about the two hunters?
There were a couple of scenes that were sort of that sort of had that vibe going, where she was just like, I mean, she's a tiny person carrying a giant pack in the middle of nowhere, and
I know, but like when it happened, it kind of didn't make sense. It would have made sense for that to happen a little earlier. Like, granted, it might have happened later in the actual story, but in the movie, it just kind of seemed out of place. Like, at that point, she had been out there with wolves, face of snow, her foot rotting off, all kinds of bad things. And then there's just one guy staring creepy at her, and that's it. That's what makes her freak out. I don't know. It kind of seemed weak to me.
That guy went way further than just staring at her.
Fair enough.
That went way further than that.
Fair enough.
Like, she was sort of not sure what to do with them, and then she, like, tried to be helpful and gave him the water, and then that guy just, like, snuck up on her while she was... Yeah, that was no good.
Yeah.
That was not good.
But I don't know, it just seemed out of place.
I don't think so. I mean, there were a lot of scenes that were just sort of like, you just weren't sure that she was going to make it, like being alone with, these three guys on a campsite, or the two hunters, or even the guy at the very beginning that gave her a ride. Like, you weren't sure if, she could trust him or not. But yeah, I mean, and none of that stuff, like, none of that really does anything for the story. It's just sort of something happening in the foreground. It's something that's happening in the movie's present, which the movie is following the hike, but really all of the action, all of the important stuff is happening outside of it. Which is why the ending is so lame, because she gets to the bridge and she starts talking like, I was so thankful to have made it there, and you see the fox walk away, and you think like there's going to be something there, or she's going to get some sort of I don't know, some kind of a sign or something that everything's all right, and feel better about herself. And instead, it just, like, the narration just goes, I was not to know that, 4 years up to the day that after I finished this, I would meet my future husband on the same trail.
And then some years later, we'd have a
kid, and then we'd have another kid named after my mom. And you're just like, really? You're going to sum up, like, 10 years in 10 seconds after spending 2 hours watching the movie?
Had they left it ambiguous, I'd have been fine.
I would have been too. I thought it would have been better if they had left it ambiguous. And I also think that those are decisions that I think they made to make it a wider appeal, to make it a bigger movie. Because there are people that would be like, what did I just waste my time watching? Like
the
what
spinning
happened?
Of the top and Inception.
Yes. People that need to know whether that top fell or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, that's wild. If you like the way we do these reviews, please like the video, subscribe. Check out all the written and video reviews at dalemaxfield.com. Thanks for watching.